Do you think the consensus is within Israel to have the temple built?
And we don't need a structure. We just need an altar.
Can you speak a little bit about what happened on July 1st?
Oh,
That there's a lot of misinformation with that as well.
so they had established that three of them were not going to be suited. So they took one of them, and on July 1st, they did a practice burning with an actual Kohen. It wasn't the first practice burning, it was the first practice burning with a red heifer. Many Christians stand with Israel. The Muslims, the Islamists, treat them even worse than the Jews.
Well, I'm going to
That's
tell you
from a-
something shocking that may shock you, Eliyahu. But Yeshua and what you would call the Brit Hadashah actually agree with you. What Hashem says is the Torah is for my people, and it's also for the people who choose to sojourn and the foreigner who chooses to sojourn with them. Well, I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up in any of this, and
No.
and now that I'm learning it, Eliyahu, I'm learning the Torah, and I'm studying it with my father. I'm studying it with my mother, and I'm teaching it to my kids. And brother, I don't know how to, and I try to tell this to my Christian brethren. My spiritual connection with Hashem has, and my faith in Yeshua has grown exponentially because of Torah.
That it is the biggest obstacle to the Mashiach, to the Messiah. The biggest obstacle is Christians proselytizing Jews.
Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the channel. If you enjoyed the content that you see today, leave a like down below, and please consider subscribing to the channel and become part of our growing community. With all that out of the way, enjoy the video. Shalom. All right, shalom and welcome, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. You definitely are not going to want to miss this program. I have been listening to Eliyahu, his content for some time, and I find it to be extremely intriguing and so relevant to what we're seeing today. And I truly believe that his voice is needed, and his role and calling is providing an integral piece of the prophetic puzzle that is being laid out before our very eyes. He is a senior reporter for Israel 365 News. He has been playing a vital role in prophetic times. He has bridged the gap between Jews and Christians. And the information that Eliyahu will be sharing, not only with my audience today, but has been sharing with people worldwide, is crucial to help us understand end-time prophecy within the world that we are living in today. He made Aliyah in 1991 and served in the IDF as a combat medic. Eliyahu studied Jewish law and received rabbinical ordination in Israel. He has worked as a freelance writer, authoring books such as The Hope Merchant, Dolphins on the Moon, The Master of Return and the 11th Light, and his newest book, Return of the Red Heifers, which you will find a link in the description below. I would highly encourage you to support his work, as it is helping bring a greater understanding of these things to the entire world. So with great honor, I introduce to you Eliyahu Berkowitz. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me, actually, Orlando. It's really, I'm very pleased.
I hope the introduction kind of gave a scope of your background. Would you like to elaborate on anything that I mentioned there?
No, you just did. You did just fine. I mean, I was a dairy farmer on kibbutz. I was a chef in French restaurants in Manhattan. I have a thing for motorcycles. Other than that, father of four, two sons in the army, and my daughter is with one family, an amazing organization. So,
What made you do Aliyah in 1991?
I'd been cooking in fancy French restaurants, not kosher, fancy French. I was totally disconnected from Judaism for about 10 years, and I just burned out. I totally burned out, and I had no idea what to do with my life. So I went on tour with the Grateful Dead and tried to get my brain sorted out. And when I came back from touring with the Grateful Dead, I said I need a vacation. So I went to Israel, and it stuck. Within the first 2 weeks, I knew I was staying. And that was 91.
Had you been to Israel before then?
I came here when I was 17 years old. I went to a Hebrew day school and they had a Ulpan program. So I spent about 5 months here and I wanted to stay. I knew then that it was something very special. So there was that. But then I got stuck in America for 13 years and then moved here.
Well, let's start off with talking about what's right now in the news right now or on a lot of social media. And there's just so much misinformation, Eliyahu.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's just crazy. I can't keep up with it. The Paral Dumar, the red heifer. I know that you said before I've seen your content in other interviews that you've done. And I know that you've said that the Paral Dumar is not a sacrifice. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see in social media, on YouTube, on Facebook, you name it, is every person that I see in the West is calling this a sacrifice and they tie it to the daily sacrifices and so on and so forth. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Okay, the Paraduma is explicitly described in Numbers 19. And the Rambam, the Maimonides, says it's the most inexplicable and enigmatic mitzvah in the whole Bible. And it's not a sacrifice because it's done, it's slaughtered and burned outside of the temple, or in the times of the desert, outside of the tabernacle. And it's a ceremony to produce the ashes that are used to purify Jews specifically from impurity that comes from proximity to a dead person or dead body. So in that sense, it's a ritual to prepare the ashes. And what's really important for people to understand is impurity is not the same as sin.
Mm-hmm.
And sin is not the same. You can be totally pure but have sinned, or you can the opposite. You can not have sinned and be impure. And the impurity can only be imparted to a Jewish person, and that is, we need the red heifer in order to go up to the Temple Mount, which is only partially true, because we are required to bring the public time-bound offerings even if we are impure. That would be the twice daily offering, the feast offerings, and the Passover offering, the Passover lamb. So even in a state of impurity, we're required to bring them. The red heifer would be to purify us for the individual offerings, the sin offerings, the Thanksgiving offerings. Those offerings we need to be pure in order to bring. So we need the red heifer for that.
So you don't need the red heifer to actually build the temple, correct? Or you do?
Well, we don't even need the temple in order to do the offerings. Jews are forbidden from bringing offers anywhere except for the precise place where King David sanctified his altar on Mount Moriah on the Temple Mount. We can only bring offerings there. We cannot bring it anywhere else, and we don't need a structure. We just need an altar, and an altar is a pile of stones. We can get 10 strong young guys. Each of them grabs a rock, puts it down, and we can start work. When the nation came back from the Babylonian exile, they were criticized because they did not build the temple of God for a while, though they did immediately start the temple service. So that's what we should be doing.
You see that when the exiles were over. Am I correct in that?
Right.
The
right,
first
right,
thing
exactly.
that was built was the altar, and the temple came afterwards.
Precisely.
And do the people who build it, they need to be ritually pure? With the people who build the temple need to be ritually pure? Is that?
I don't think so.
No.
Not sure. We're talking about a gazillion and one details. I learned a lot, but interviews like this point me in the right direction to where I need to learn more. So that's another question I have to ask. I mean, it's interesting that people who built the temple were not Kohanim, were not priests. But meanwhile, they went inside. The only person who could go into the Holy of Holies was the high priest, and that was once a year, but he wasn't the one building the Holy of Holies. So once it was built, that's a different story.
Yeah. And I believe you mentioned in another interview that your wish is for the Sanhedrin to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that your wish is for the Sanhedrin to be more involved so that there's more structure around this, I believe.
I think that's really what we need, because we haven't really emphasized the Sanhedrin as much as we should, and I think that's to our detriment. The Sanhedrin, the structure where the Sanhedrin sat was actually in the wall of the temple. It was half in the holy and half in the profane, which is what its purpose was. Its purpose was to connect the holy and the profane. Even making a judgment about money is sacred. There are laws in the Torah about how to deal with money. So how you handle your monetary things is sacred, and the Sanhedrin dealt with that. I think when the temple, and this is my opinion. Now we're dealing with my opinion. When the Temple Institute, I think they're amazing, but when they started, they were dealing with basically education, and no one was on board. They were the only ones doing what they were doing, and they were really very fringe. In the last couple of years, especially since the red heifer, the temple's become pretty mainstream. There are a lot of people talking about it, and I think we're ready to move on to the next stage, which is a temple organization, not the Temple Institute, which is a very nice museum and education. We need to be moving on to, like, for example, collecting funds and organizing funds, organizing, having a registry for the Kohanim, which the Temple Institute has. But I think it's time to move on to a practical stage where things are moving forward practically. And I think the nation's ready for that.
Do you think the consensus is within Israel to have the temple built?
Well,
I've heard different. I've heard even religious Jews, even some will do not want it built to escape controversy.
Right. Okay. So before the war, also there's a huge difference between Israel and America. In Israel, how do I put this? Okay. The reason why Hamas attacked us and Hezbollah attacked us was because of the red heifers. And they have stated that explicitly in their own media. That's why they called it the Al-Aqsa flood. They mistakenly call the Dome of the Rock Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is the black dome, not the golden dome. They call the Dome of the Rock Al-Aqsa. They're so wrong about it. But they did that because they said, oh, the Jews have the red heifers. They're going to build the temple soon, and we got to stop that. So they went to war because of the red heifer. And the IDF soldiers that go down to Gaza report that in almost every single house, there's a couple things in almost every single house. There's a picture of the Dome of the Rock, and the symbol of Hamas has the Dome of the Rock on it with swords. So that's what they see the Temple Mount being, and we see it as the source of all peace, the house of prayer for all nations. They also have, almost every house has an Arabic copy of Mein Kampf, of Hitler's book. So I wish I was making that up. So what the Israeli soldiers coming back from Gaza are realizing is that's what we're fighting for. That's what's important to them. It should be important to us. So more and more, because of the war, the consciousness of Israelis is turning towards the temple. And you can see that in the number of Jews that are ascending to the Temple Mountain. It's not easy for us to go up. For me to go up, I have to go toivel in a mikveh. I have to go immerse myself. I have to get baptized. And I can't wear leather shoes. And it's much easier than it used to be. I used to have to go through a full security check. But they've really relaxed that, which is kind of interesting. And it used to be that the majority of Israelis objected to prayer on the Temple Mount, because they said it was inciting the Palestinians. And they've realized that basically me breathing is an act of incitement.
Mhm.
And the Temple Mount is just a stupid excuse. It's really not holy to Islam at all. That's total fake news. It's a lie.
Well, you had Ben Gavir recently. When was it on Tisha
Yeah.
B'Av on the
Well,
Temple Mount?
well, the thing about Ben Gvir is until the war, very few members of Knesset went up to the Temple Mount. Now, all of a sudden, on Tisha B'Av, like 50 went up. Ben Gvir actually led the prayer. And everyone's like, ooh. And I'm like, I don't care about Ben Gvir. Leave me alone. Let him lead the prayer. You know, he's nothing special.
But he's part of the
Oh,
government. I think that's the big thing that we're seeing is that you're seeing the government endorse this, you know?
Part of the government. Ooh. He's not such an amazing guy. He's not even my favorite person in the Knesset.
Yeah.
He's very outspoken. It's like I don't get with the way people outside of Israel view Israeli politics is not the way we view Israeli politics. Everyone in America is like, oh, Bibi is a right-wing extremist. We have to get rid of him. And I'm like, first of all, Bibi's not going to be. Next time there's an election, he's gone. No one in Israel, you know, he was sitting in the chair when on October 7th. Benny Gantz was he was in charge of security on October 7th. These people are gone.
Yeah.
They're not coming back. And Bibi Netanyahu has never, ever, ever been right wing.
Interesting.
Never. He
Well,
is at best he's a centrist.
Well, I definitely want to get into the tamid. You mentioned the tamid
Okay.
a little bit later. I want to get into the tamid. I want to get into you kind of touched on it, a two-state solution, and I definitely want to talk about October 7th. But I want to go back to you mentioned a little while ago, and I'm trying to remember how you said it. You said that Mount Moriah is the place where Hashem had sanctified where the offerings were to be taking place. And again, I want to make this clear to the audience.
King David sanctified it.
King David
sanctified it. But it says in the Torah, it says that, you know, it's the place where Hashem will show you.
Yeah. And I want to make clear to the audience that this, I try, and I am going to use the word sacrifice, but I try to stay away from it because it's not a sacrifice. It's an offering. Sacrifice in our English language, we connect that with death, and an offering is not really connection with death. It's a connection with life.
In Hebrew, the word is korban.
Exactly.
Korban comes from the word karov, which means to come close. So the sacrifice, right? See.
Yep. I'll use it too. I'll use it too.
Yeah. Everything that goes on in the temple is the place for the Shekhinah. Shekhinah literally means like it's the heavenly presence, but it comes from the root of the word neighbor, okay, or to dwell. So it's the place where we're supposed to hang out with God. It's the family's living room.
Yeah. So it's coming closer to God, to Hashem.
Right. So this is the family meal. That's the point. And you want to take a shower first, so you have the red heifer.
So you mentioned about Mount Moriah however, the tabernacle was set up in Shiloh for over 400 years, I believe.
Almost 400, and it was wandering around the desert. So there could be a place that was the Holy of Holies one day and was just a patch in the desert the next day. So it was kind of unusual. And also the tabernacle was a rectangle, and the temple was T-shaped. So it's not a one-to-one correspondence.
Okay. So there would be in no case that an offering or tamid could take place in Shiloh.
Well, they did for almost 400 years.
But like going forward.
Okay. It's not so simple. When we were in the desert, the tabernacle was in the middle, and not only was the only place to bring offerings in the tabernacle, but the only place you could eat meat was in the tabernacle. You would, if you got a hunger for meat, you'd bring an offering that you ate part of it, and a part of it was for Hashem and the Kohanim. Then when we came into Israel, there was a stage of what we call bamot, which is you could build an altar in your backyard and bring a Kohen, and the Kohen would do the offering for you. And then once it was established in Shiloh, that was the only place you could bring offerings. And then when the day of Eli the priest, the Ark of the Covenant was captured, all of a sudden we went back to being able to build altars in our backyard. And then when King David established the Temple Mount, then we went back, and that was the end. From then on, it was only on the Temple Mount. So there are stages, but
So there's
not
no
anymore.
there's no possible scenario that an offering or a tamid today can take place in Shiloh. It's got to be on the Temple
No,
Mount.
no. And
Okay.
not only that, the red heifer has to be, and it says in the Torah that the red heifer was prepared outside of the camp.
Mhm.
And the obvious reason being because the preparation imparted impurity. So you didn't want that to be in the camp, and you certainly didn't want it to be in the tabernacle. And it's not written in the Bible. I'm not going to argue that point. But when they established the temple, they established a site on the Mount of Olives, and that particular specific site, very specific site, became the only place where they prepared the red heifer. And the reason is, from that specific site, you could, if the doors of the temple were open, and the curtains were open, you could see directly into the Holy of Holies. And we know where that specific site is, and Bona Israel has purchased that site. So it's not done on the Temple Mount. It's done on the Mount of Olives.
Can you speak a little bit about what happened on July 1st?
Oh,
That there's a lot of misinformation with that as well.
yeah. What happened was 3 years ago, Bona Israel, in conjunction with the Temple Institute, brought over 5 red Angus 11-month-old calves that were perfectly red and had been inspected in America and were deemed as possibly suited for the commandment. They were brought over, and the problem is they can grow non-red hairs. They can only have maximum 2 non-red hairs. They brought them over, and they've been checking them all along, but they haven't said this is their condition. So they had established that 3 of them were not going to be suited. So they took one of them, and on July 1st, they did a practice burning with an actual Kohen. It wasn't the first practice burning. It was the first practice burning with a red heifer. And they took one of the heifers that was not suited. It was not entirely red. It had too many non-red hairs. And they slaughtered it somewhere else, brought it to a town in Samaria, not to the Mount of Olives, and burned it on a platform. And so it was a practice performed by a Kohen who was suited to do the red heifer ceremony. And they had not wanted anyone to film it, to photograph it, to talk about it, but people being what they are, word got out, and then a video got out, and people started saying, oh, they actually did it, and it was a kosher red heifer. And there was a YouTuber who did a video that got millions of views that said precisely that, and he even had ashes from the red heifer.
I saw that. I saw that.
Right. That being said, if they were ashes of a kosher red heifer, he's not a Kohen. What's he doing carrying around ashes of a kosher red heifer?
I don't want to mention his name,
I don't know. I don't either.
I don't either.
I don't either.
But I tried to research him and I couldn't find anything on him. So
it turns out that I actually learned in yeshiva a bunch of years ago. And he's a very sweet guy. He's really, really sweet. And he's really loves the nation of Israel. He's just very passionate. And he's like, I want the red heifer now. Let's make it happen. And I'm personal friends. It's a little bit, I'm personally connected to Rav Azaria Ariel, who's been running the red heifer project. And he's the only one who's been running the red heifer project for the last 15 years or so. And it's a huge privilege. So I'm not going to push him or second guess him. This young man, his motivation, 1,000%, was, I want to bring Mashiach. I want to bring Messiah. I want to bring the temple. I want to do it now. Let's make it happen. God bless him. God bless him. He's a very zealous young man with wonderful intentions. I know him personally. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Unfortunately, the information he gave over was not accurate. It was not a kosher red heifer. And if it was, then he shouldn't have had the ashes. And another part of the problem is Byron Stinson. I cannot express how much of a debt of gratitude we owe this man. He single-handedly brought the red heifers to Israel. It's like, since the time of Moses, between the time of Moses and the destruction of the temple, there were 9 red heifers. That's it.
That's it.
You're talking like what? 3,000 years?
Thousands.
Yeah. And this is the 10th one that's supposed to usher in the Mashiach, the Messiah. And he brought it. So it's a huge thing he did. But at the same time, he's not a rabbinic scholar. And Rav Azaria Ariel is. And the person at this point who's calling the shots is Rav Azaria Ariel and the other rabbis who have been selected to make this decision. And they said that this cow is not kosher. Byron seems to think it was, and he passed that along to the YouTuber, and that's how the bad information got out. That being said, I'm going to give a disclaimer on this interview. I've done several interviews since the misinformation got out, and the reason is I'm trying to put out fires. I'm trying to give people a source instead of just allowing the misinformation to.
And that's great. That's what this platform is for.
Thank God. However, every time I do one of these interviews, and I won't see it on this, I see in the comments, people say, oh, he's not telling the truth. They really did do the red heifer, and they're hiding it. Israel's hiding it. It's like, why would we hide it? Why would we hide it? And we're not. It's kind of a little disturbing, and I think it kind of comes from the replacement theology, anti-Semitic. You can't trust the Jews.
Well, the way I see it, Eliyahu, is, and you mentioned this earlier with the Al-Aqsa flood. I could not from a point of dishonesty, but I could see a scenario where maybe it wouldn't be, it wouldn't want to be promoted for reasons that you believed, maybe because of the turmoil that's going on over there with Hamas and what had happened on October 7th. And, by all means, if you feel like that's not even on the table,
but
please expound.
I hear that, but the red heifer, it's done on the Mount of Olives. It's not even done on the Temple Mount. So, we can do it and just say, no cameras, no Arabs, stay away. It's
Hamas, didn't they say, the spokesman said that one of the reasons they initiated the tragedy on October 7th was because of the Paral Dema.
Because they said, since we had it, we were going to build the temple. But the Parah Aduma has nothing to do with building the temple.
Gotcha. Okay.
And in the words of Rav Azaria Ariel, they don't need an excuse to kill us.
Yeah.
They just wanted to, and the problem is that the tragedy is that there are enough non-Jews who are like, yeah, those Jews are inciting the Arabs. But what we've seen over and over again in Israel is that anytime the Jews stand up for themselves, like a normal nation, everyone says, oh, that's going to start a regional war. And the exact opposite happens. When Donald Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, everyone was like, oh, that's going to start a regional war. A month later, we signed the Abraham Accords. Peace broke out. And the reason is, if Israel, attacks Iran, it's going to start in a regional war. No, we just made the world much, much safer and stopped a country that's been shouting death to America. We stopped them from getting nuclear ICBMs. Okay. What is the Temple Mount? What is the temple? The temple is a house of prayer for all nations. It is the source of peace. Okay? It is not the source of war. What is up there right now? Only Islamists, only Islamists are allowed to pray. I'm not allowed to go up there as a Jew fully. I'm not allowed to wear tefillin. Things are opening up. But if there is an apartheid in Israel, and it's anti-Jewish, and it's on the Temple Mount. But what a lot of Christians don't realize is all the things that they say I can't do, you can't do either.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever been up there, but the Waqif will make Christians wear really disgusting, like sweatsuit clothes with wide yellow stripes, and it goes back to Islamic caliphates where Christians are dhimmi, and they want to embarrass you, they want to shame you.
Well, the images that I've been seeing, Eliyahu, is a lot of the Jews that are there are, for the first time in many years, are able to go prostrate, pray on the Temple Mount, and who was it that I was?
Dance.
Yeah, I was talking with Hanuk Young. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
I see the things that he posts on his Facebook thing, that they're on the mount, they're praying, they're dancing, and to me that brings joy. And I wanted to state this, Eliyahu.
And we've got to stop that. Isn't that awful? and God forbid it should be equality of religion up there.
Well, and you mentioned how they treat the Christians different, or I'm sorry, the same. Just a real quick disclaimer, because in my estimation, believers in Yeshua, the Messiah of Israel, and Christianity get lumped together, brother. And I don't fall in that. I don't think that. I think that bucket is a misnomer. I think Christianity is a misnomer because there's so many things. I believe in Yeshua HaMashiach, but there's so many things, Eliyahu.
I hate to break it to you, dude, but the minute Christians stand with Israel, the Muslims, the Islamists, treat them even worse than the Jews. They really do.
I'm prepared for that, and I believe a lot of my brothers and sisters are prepared for that too, brother Eliyahu. We're right there with you.
I'll be standing behind you with an M16. Don't worry, don't sweat it, dude. Don't sweat it, America. Israel's got your back.
But the point being is that Christianity has a lot of things tied to it, and I don't, and I know a lot of people that I know, Eliyahu, don't associate ourselves with those things that are tied to Christianity. Yes, we believe Yeshua is HaMashiach, but there's so many things that we just no.
That's interesting. So I got a question for you. I've been doing these articles for 11 years, and my expressed intent from the beginning was not something that I personally believed in then, but I very strongly believe in now, which is the biggest sign that we are on the edge of Mashiach, the end of days, is Jews and Christians coming together. Because for 2,000 years, Jews and Christians couldn't come together, and it was a horrible relationship we had. And now we're coming together, and I feel closer to you than I do to American Jews who don't stand with Israel. Like much closer. I mean, we have a lot in common. We have the Bible in common, or at least one Bible, and we have the Israel in common, and so we're there. So we have a lot in common, and I see this coming together as very blessed, as prophetic, as really the sign that we're coming up on special times. So I'm sorry, 1 second.
Can I challenge one point?
Sure.
Can I challenge one point?
Sure.
You mentioned the coming together of Jews and Christians. I would challenge that the people who are coming together with Jews or Israel. Again, I'm not talking specifically about individual people, but I'm talking about an entity of Christianity. I don't know if it's Christianity, Eliyahu, that's coming. I think it's people that are coming out of Christianity that are understanding that Israel is not what we have been taught in the churches, and that's where I fall in. I'm coming together with you, brother, and Israel, but I don't associate myself with the term Christianity. Does that make sense?
Oh, not only does it make sense, if you're lucky that you're on the other side of the world, because if we were in the same room, I'd give you a huge hug right now. When I started writing about this, a certain kind of Christian started coming to me, and I'm using that term again.
Yeah.
And there were Christians who loved Israel, and what I've seen lately is there's there's a new Protestant Reformation happening. A new Reformation happening. Uh, it's based around Israel. It's focused on Israel, where you have part of the Christian world is going against Israel. And they say there's no connection between the Jews and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's no connection between the Jews and the covenant. There's no connection between the Jews and Israel, even. They're not the Jews. And we certainly, as Christians, do not have an interest in helping them. We actually have an interest in not helping them. And those are the Tucker Carlsons. Tucker Carlson, when he was talking to Ted Cruz, he's like,
Oh
"Oh,
my
what's the,
goodness. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
well, what's the connection?" And then when he did that interview with that horrible nun,
Yeah.
Sister Stephanopoulos,
Yes.
I mean, she lied about Christianity.
Yeah, she did.
Um, so you're right. I should not use the term Christianity to describe the people who have come to us.
Thank you.
Most of them have either left or been rejected by the church, and they've rejected what they call churchianity, which I love. I feel and they'll tell me I'm not Christian, but I mean, come on. By the time you get around to explaining the terms, it's very cumbersome.
Well,
So
the
I like to use.
connotation is if you believe in Yeshua as the Messiah, then you're automatically a Christian, and that's just not true. It's not
Well,
true.
there you go. There's also a big difference between the people who use the term Jesus versus the people who use the term Yeshua.
Hmm.
It's huge. I
Yeah.
never heard the term Yeshua when I was growing up.
Hmm.
It was Jesus. And I think it's all based around Israel. And yeah, and it's very much I think it's a total revolution happening within what I like to call the Jesus movement. You're in the Jesus movement, and it's very, very, very similar to the first followers of Jesus, and
Yes.
very, very unsimilar to the church that came after.
Well, I'm going to
That's
tell
the
you something shocking that may shock you, Eliyahu. But Yeshua and what you would call the Brit Hadashah actually agree with you. I believe you mentioned this, and I want to come back to my topics, but you're touching on some points. I believe you mentioned this in another interview that Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 33 speak of a renewed covenant. And I agree with you. It's not a new covenant. I don't know why people say that. It's a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. And I believe you mentioned that Gentiles are not mentioned, or Goyim are not mentioned in that. And what I would say to that is Yeshua, his own words, agree 100% with what you said in the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah. In Matthew 10, he tells his disciples, his Talmudim, he says, do not go into the way of the Goyim. Don't go into the way of the Gentiles, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
which is where Constantine came in. He dragged the original followers of Jesus into the ways of the Goyim, of the nations.
Mm-hmm.
And he dragged them and forced it on them. And I think Christians or followers of Jesus are paying for that to this day.
Yeah. And that same Brit Hadashah, it says that the Gentiles or the Goyim would be partakers of the same promises. And I know there's controversy in that, but my point being is that the New Testament does not necessarily disagree with what your belief. Yeshua says it with his whole mouth. No. Go into the house, don't go to the Goyim, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's the whole reason why there's a renewed covenant, is to unite the two sticks.
But if I can point something out, first of all, I have to preface this, the disclaimer. Judaism discourages conversion, and it is forbidden to proselytize.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, it's forbidden for me to teach you Torah,
Mm-hmm.
which is like I don't understand spreading the gospel. It's one of the most foreign concepts that we don't have in Judaism at all. Um, if anyone converts, it's despite the fact that people have said, no, 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 go away, go away. But you're doing something that we haven't discussed that's very interesting. You're learning Hebrew, aren't you?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Teach it to my kids. We read in Hebrew. We pray in Hebrew.
Learning Bible in Hebrew is a very different experience.
Yes, absolutely.
And when I see a believer in Yeshua who loves Israel and learns the Bible in Hebrew, I know two things about him. I know number one, he's ours, he's part of Israel. And number two, he's going to become much closer to Yeshua, much closer. You know, they say, I don't know, they say, Yeshua, they wrote the original New Testament, Brit Chadashah, was written in Greek. Maybe, but Yeshua came from Judea. He came from Yehuda.
Absolutely.
He spoke Hebrew.
100%.
Certainly didn't speak Arabic.
Well, when he quotes the Tanakh, he's quoting it,
Yeah.
the translation in Hebrew. He's not quoting it in Greek.
So I think I'm looking forward to when Jews are willing to teach the Brit Chadashah, the New Testament, to Christians. My experience of learning the Brit Chadashah, the New Testament, was really fascinating because I'm reading it and I'm understanding it through the lens of the Talmud and rabbinic teachings, because that's what Jesus learned it in. That's what
Exactly.
I mean, how can you talk about baptism without learning what mikveh is? It's a totally different experience. It's much more full. It's much so anyway.
Well,
So that's
the more that I study, the Torah, Eliyahu, the more my belief in the Messiah of Israel as Yeshua is strengthened. It doesn't, and
amen.
I have, you probably experience the exact polar opposite of me, but in my world, my family, my friends think that I'm departing, and I have to continuously tell them. I tell them, no, you don't understand. This Tanakh, this Brit Hadashah, is about Israel, about the people of Israel, the tribes of Israel, the families of Israel. We are fortunate to be partakers in this. It's not about us. It's about Israel. And brother, you mentioned about Torah and the Gentiles. I mean, I read in like Micah 4:1-2, it says, "But in the Acharit Hayamim, it will come about that the mountain of Adonai's house will be established as the most important mountain. It will be regarded more highly than other hills, and peoples will stream there. Many Goyim, many Gentiles, will go and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of Adonai, to the house of the God of Yaakov. He will teach us about his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion will go forth Torah and the Adonai and the word of Adonai from Yerushalayim.'" So I see throughout, and you're exactly right. In fact, when people tell me, "Wait a minute, Orlando, the Torah is for Israel. It's not for Gentiles," and I would actually agree, Eliyahu. I would agree.
Really?
I would agree that the Torah is only for Israel, not for the Gentiles. But what my response would be, and again, I completely disagree with replacement theology. But just as if I'm going to go to Canada and my parents live there and we're going to make our homestead there, now I have to obey their laws. I'm not going to go to Canada or go to Europe or wherever and drive on the wrong side of the road. I have to obey their laws. So if I want to be part of your family, brother, if I want to be part of your country, your kingdom, not my kingdom, your kingdom, and follow your Messiah, not your Messiah, I have to live in accordance to your laws. I don't have the autonomy to go live in your kingdom and live the way I want to live. That doesn't
Not
make
not
any sense.
not our laws. It's just the closer you get to God, the more careful you have to be.
Amen.
If you're some schlepper in a horrible neighborhood and you just spend all your day drinking and doing whatever you want, do whatever you want. But if you've decided that you want to come close to God, you can't just do what you want.
That's
You know, I
exactly
heard
right.
we just read the parsha about forbidden foods, which foods we're allowed to eat, which foods we're not allowed to eat.
Hmm.
And there's an amazing Rashi where he says, "We're just for the law about not eating bugs. That would be enough for God to bring us out of Egypt." And he brings a Talmud that talks about how when Adam was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, he felt awful. Why? He said, "When I was in the garden, I was special. All of the all of the animals, God never said to them, 'Eat this, don't eat that.' But I was forbidden from eating the tree of knowledge, and that made me special. And once I ate from the tree of knowledge, I wasn't special anymore." So what did God say to man? He said, "I'm kicking you out, and you can't eat, um, and it's from the sweat of your brow that you'll eat." He also got the laws about ripping limbs off of animals, that he couldn't do that. But what did God say to the snake? "You're going to eat from the dust," meaning your food is everywhere.
Hmm.
Meaning, I don't care what you eat. If I see some kid eating a pound of candy, I don't care. He's not my kid. And I may not have the right to go up to him and tell him to stop eating. But my kid, I'm going to be really careful about what he eats.
Yep.
If some guy says, "I want to eat shrimp, I want to eat lobster," do it. God doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. The Jewish people, God's like, "No, no, 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 no. You're not going to eat creepy crawlies. You're not going to eat unclean animals. We're special. He loves us more." So it's not a punishment or anything like that. And the closer, and that has to do with everything. The closer you come, non-religious people, I don't care if they pray. But if I see you praying, guaranteed, man, I'm going to walk up to you afterwards. "Orlando, oh, what did I ask for? What did you say?" I want to hear it because you're closer. You're special.
Well, God forbid anybody want to eat shrimp or pork. Those things are
Right.
just from a health standpoint, it's just disgusting. But Numbers 15, Eliyahu says that the Torah that was given to you is not it's for you and also for the sojourners or the foreigners that choose
Yeah.
to sojourn with you. So if I
Right.
choose me, and I do have some uh, Jewish blood in it, but I've seen your testimony. I wasn't grown up in it, but I do have some.
Doesn't
But to
doesn't
me, yeah. But to me, I'm thinking, but I want to be part of Israel. I don't want to go and kick the people of Israel out, and I'm going to say, no, no. I'm a guest. I'm a guest, and I want to be part of the nation of Israel. And therefore, what Hashem says is the Torah is for my people. And it's also for the people who choose to sojourn and the foreigner who chooses to sojourn with them.
Orlando, where's your family from?
We're Texas, United
No,
States.
before that.
We're Hispanic descent.
Right. Where from?
Uh,
You
Mexico,
know?
all over the
Mexico?
place. But my DNA came back Ashkenazi, interestingly enough.
No, it doesn't surprise me. I can't tell you how many times over the last 11 years, uh, almost every time that a non-Jew, in air quotes, walks up to me and says, "I love Israel. I have no idea why." And then it comes out they have ancestors who were Jewish.
Yeah,
That's the Jewish soul. It doesn't go away.
I agree with you.
And 10% of South and Central America are Jews
Hmm.
from the Spanish Inquisition and the Iberian Inquisition. And I can't tell you how many. My friend Hernando Cortez, he also I was talking, and he's very, very into teaching Bible and teaching the Talmud to non-Jews, and he's very into the red heifer. And we were talking. We've been friends for a couple of years, and I said to him, "Hernando, did you ever check your GNA?" And he laughed. He said, "I'm a Levite." So, my friend Jim Barfield, he's Jewish, and then he
Oh,
found out.
Jim Barfield. I'd love to meet Jim Barfield. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh! If you do, I want to be there and have a beer with the two of you. He's an amazing man, and really a seeker of truth. And his wife as well. They have Jewish ancestry. I have a friend, the Riverwinds, Joseph Amahura Riverwind. He's a Native American. He's an Indian, um, and he loved Israel. Loved Israel. And years after I first met him, he walked up to me with his cell phone. He said, "What's this?" And it was a picture on his cell phone of a front page from a holy Jewish book from the 1880s.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Where'd you get it?" He's like, "Well, my grandmother found it in her father's library." And I'm like, "Well, my dear friend Joseph, do with this what you will, but you should know as the non-Jews don't have those books." And he did a little more digging and he found out that there's more than just that. And that is the case. I mean, the 20% of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, which were the most prominent nations of their time, were Jewish.
Hmm.
20% of Poland was Jewish before the Holocaust. Right now, there are 0.03% Jews in the world. It used to be way more, but we've had a couple of genocides.
Well, I didn't
Not,
grow up. I didn't grow up in any of this, and
no,
and now that I'm learning it, Eliyahu, I'm learning the Torah, and I'm studying it with my father. I'm studying it with my mother, and I'm teaching it to my kids. And brother, I don't know how to, and I try to tell this to my Christian brethren. My spiritual connection with Hashem has and my faith in Yeshua has grown exponentially because of Torah. And people think the
sure.
opposite. Well, if you go to Torah, if you start studying Torah, you go that way. Now you're abandoning Jesus. I'm like, no, no. As a matter of fact, it's gotten stronger. My
If
faith in
you
Yeshua has gotten stronger
if
as
you
a Messiah.
study the book that Yeshua knew God gave to mankind, that'll make you less connected to Yeshua? How does that work? It's like you're literally walking in his footsteps.
Well, as I mentioned, brother, that his words mirror what you say. And there's this misconception that Jesus taught something different than what Jews or Orthodox Jews, however you want to say it, the Jews think. And I believe, Eliyahu, that we're two ships passing in the night. We're not even having those real conversations. We're too
Right,
adamant on the things that we disagree with,
right,
and we're
right,
actually
right.
not missing. We're missing the things that Yeshua actually agrees with everything that you said. Everything that you say,
Sure.
he agrees with 100%.
Sure. I mean, it's a process. From your side, there are a lot of issues. From our side, the problem is that there's been such a long history of unpleasant relations
Yes.
that
Yes.
it's really difficult to get Jews to lower their defenses.
Yep.
And I cannot emphasize enough that it is the biggest obstacle to the Mashiach, to the Messiah. The biggest obstacle is Christians proselytizing Jews.
Yep.
If Christians can put that aside, and I understand they've been trained to believe it's an act of love, that they believe that they're showing their love for me by showing concern for my place in heaven and the world to come. But it's not. It's not. And I cannot, in full faith, tell my Jewish brothers, oh, connect with these people, if they walk up to them and the first 20 things out of their mouth is, oh, you have to accept Jesus. And I'm sure I'll look in the comments and people will be saying, oh, but he's got to accept Jesus. It happens every single time. And I've come to say, well, whatever, it's there.
What about it? What about, brother, if that conversation, because I've been trying to change that conversation, Eliyahu, for a long time now. What if that
Mm,
conversation is not about that? What if that conversation is they're trying to proselytize us? No, it's actually not that. What if the conversation is, and I know it kind of sounds the same, but it's not. It's light years away. It's not a proselytizing to come to Christianity, but rather for us, like people like me, to accept the Messiah of Israel. It's not about Jews coming to Christianity, but rather people like myself coming to the understanding that Yeshua is the Messiah of Israel. And from a Jewish standpoint, I'm sure you're thinking, well, that's the same thing. Jesus,
No,
Christianity,
no.
they're the
But
same, and they're not.
so let me tell you a story. One time I was talking to a Christian group that came to Israel, and there was an old guy in the group, and it was like 20 people or so. And I started out, I was like, okay, so, you landed in Israel a couple days ago. How's it been? And they were really like, 2 days in Israel. And this old guy, he said, my wife passed away about 6 months ago. And I'm thinking he's a little confused, not answering the question. He said, and we always wanted to come to Israel together, but she passed away, so we can't. So I landed in Israel, and the next morning I was down in the dining room having a cup of coffee, and I felt her hand on my back. And I said, being in Israel has brought me that much closer to the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Judaism doesn't talk about the Holy Spirit in the same way that Christianity does. But that made such an impression on me. It's not that I don't want to hear about Jesus. I don't want to be the focus of an attempt to get me to believe in Jesus. If you want to tell me about your faith, I want to hear about it. If you want to tell me about your connection to Israel, your connection to Bible through Jesus, I want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about why I should accept Jesus. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I understand that. I had this conversation with my friends that I do not blame Jewish people for being defensive, sometimes even militant against people speaking about Christian things because of what has happened in the past.
I love to hear about
history.
Christian things. I love to hear about Christian things, just
Well,
not.
Well, there's been a
Not
lot of
about-
persecution though that's come from the
Yes.
Christian world,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that Christians were involved in October 7th. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
But, the
about-
crusades, there's been so much throughout the centuries that have happened to the Jewish people. My goodness, Eliyahu, if I was in those shoes, would I act any different? I would not. I'm trying to think. If I had people all around the world killing my people, and yet they're coming to me and wanting me to believe what they believe, I would be a little, hey.
So we have Mashiach. You have the second coming or Messiah. The Muslims have Mahdi. I don't think that the Messiah is going to come and count up who's got more people on their team. I don't think that's what it's going to be. And I think the whole concept, part of replacement theology, is saying we won more people for our team, and in the end of days, we're going to be the winners. I think that's it. It certainly didn't come from Jesus. I think where it came from Esav, the world of Esau, which was Edom, which was Rome. Esau was red. He was conquering. He was a fighter. He wanted to conquer and win. And he was into war. And so Rome, in the tradition of Esav, wants to conquer and wants a bigger army. I don't think Jesus was like that. I think that concept of more people on our side and let's convert other people, I think was brought in by Constantine, by Rome.
Yeah. I think if there's any conversion, if we want to use that term, I think it's people like me coming out of Christianity and converting to the Messiah of Israel. I mean, it says in the Torah, it says in the Tanakh that, I think it's in Hosea, that the Torah would be a strange thing to Israel. And it's never been a strange, or to Ephraim, it's never been a strange thing to Jews ever. But is it a strange thing to the people that are scattered amongst the nations? Absolutely. I live it every single day. And when I tell people about the Torah, they're like, wait, what? It's a foreign thing to them. But yet the Tanakh says it would be a foreign thing to Ephraim. I mean, and you see in Genesis 48 where Yaakov crosses his hands and he blesses Ephraim, and he says, you will be many nations. You will be many goyim. Many, not one. You will be many goyim. And and he says in the next chapter, he says, this is what's going to happen in the Yacharit Hayamim, brother. And I strongly feel, Eliyahu, that people like myself coming to the Torah, coming to brothers such as yourself and having these conversations, I believe that's a fulfillment of Genesis 48, Genesis 49, exactly what Yaakov said.
How else would you explain it? It makes no sense.
Hmm.
And and it's interesting that loving Jews, loving Israel, and loving Torah actually, you can say it kind of goes against Christianity, which
Yes,
is
it
why I
does.
think, and so the people who love Israel the most, they kind of have to go against all of the Christian teachings in order to do that. And I see them as being way more devout. They're willing to make changes in their lives. They're willing to really, really put themselves out there because of their love of Israel. And it's amazing. And that's certainly end of the days, time is coming, changes are happening. That's what I'm seeing.
Well, I would love to learn Torah more from you, brother. And I hope that our friendship continues, that we've developing a
Amen.
friendship, because I would love to
Amen.
learn Torah from you guys.
Amen.
We try to do it as much as we can, but my knowledge is limited and I study as much as I can. And I don't live it, in the land of Israel, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have and the knowledge that we do have. And
Have
that's
you
all
been
we can
here?
do. I have
Have you been here?
not. I have not.
Oh,
I
dude,
need to.
come come home. What are
I
you
need to.
waiting? And then you're going to be really messed up because once you leave the farm and come home, you ain't going back even in the slightest bit. I've and okay, so I'll give you a bit of advice. If you come to Israel and see what you expected, and you do the checklist, then you didn't come to Israel.
Hmm.
Because part of replacement theology is turning the entire Bible into an allegory. And it's not.
Yeah.
The,
Hmm.
the the Torah is a living thing,
Hmm.
and it's came back to life and it's living today. So if you come here, you've got to look at what's happening today because it's prophecy. It's written in the Bible, but it's happening today. It's and so like for example, Gaza. That's where Shimshon, that's where Samson threw the gates in. He went all the way to Gaza to throw the gates in the sea. Gaza has Bible. It's biblical history. When you go to places, we're not talking about, oh, this is where they decided to put up a museum to King David. No, this is where King David was. This is not. And there's a big problem. Like, the Christians try to believe that the temple stood in the city of David, which is downhill, a couple hundred yards away from the Temple Mount. Didn't.
Yeah.
We know where it's been, and we've never looked at anywhere else. Jews have been praying to exactly the same spot for 2,000 years since the temple was destroyed. So we know where it is. When you go to Beit Shan is written in the Bible. Everywhere is written in the Bible. You do archaeology. I love writing archaeology articles because if you dig up anything, it's got Hebrew on it. And oh my gosh, I remember Eilat Mazar of blessed memory. She dug up this pottery sherd that had, I forget which prophet it was, but it had a prophet's name on it. And it was found in the city of David.
Oh, wow.
And it was a clay seal and it had his name inscribed in it and it had a thumbprint.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was thinking, that is quite probably the thumbprint of a prophet
Oh, my
from the
goodness.
Bible.
Has
We're
this been
talking
posted
about,
online?
yeah, sure.
Oh, I missed it.
It's dude, it's just like, you go and everything is like right there, and
Hmm.
it's real. And some people can't even. I remember once, I wrote an article. One of my big viral articles from many, many years ago was that there are sinkholes appearing on the shore of the Dead Sea. They're filling up with brackish water and they're filling up with fish. And the Dead Sea, nothing lives there, but fish are filling up in these brackish waters. And there's actually a park there that's gorgeous, gorgeous. And it's, got water and it looks like the Garden of Eden. It's amazing. And I was getting a ride back from a Christian guy, and he's driving me from Jerusalem to the Golan where I live. And we're driving past the Dead Sea. And I said, oh, that's where these sinkholes are, where the Dead Sea is coming back to life. And that's prophecy.
Interesting. Oh, my goodness.
And he said, no, that prophecy was about how the church would be revived. And I'm like, dude, you're looking right at it. Tommy Waller, God bless him, very amazing man. He came to Israel as a Christian, still a Christian, so follower of Jesus, and he was touring around the country, and he went to the mount to the Har Bracha, the Mount of Blessing, which is in Samaria in Shomron, and he he saw a vineyard, and the farmer was working the vineyard, and Tommy said, "What are you doing?" And the guy said, "Well," and the guy started throwing out verses, every man under his vine. And Tommy's like, "Yeah, that's talking about the church blossoming." And and the guy's like, "No, you're standing in Shomron, you're standing in Samaria, looking at grapevines. These are precisely the vines, the leaves that the prophet was talking about." And Tommy was like, "Oh gosh, you're right." And so now he runs Hayovel and brings Christians to harvest grape for Israel. And the problem is, if all you see, and that's how replacement theology has destroyed Christians' connection to the Bible. It's turned everything into an allegory, into an analogy, to a metaphor. When the Bible is okay, but first you have to see it as the true, as it happened, and
Well,
it's happening.
let me ask you, Eliyahu, what in Hebrew, what is the word kahal? Do you kahal? I think it's Qahal.
You mean community or the congregation?
Exactly. And there's where, again, I'm going to put it in air quotes, the Christian world misunderstands that word. Church it's not a good word, because it doesn't really encapsulate what the actual Hebrew word means. The word really is kahal, and it was first the church. If you really want to use it, the church was first formed at Mount Sinai, when the children of Israel gathered together, the congregation. That is the church. If I don't even like using that word, I really don't. But for lack of a better term, if my brothers and sisters in the Christian world were to understand that you're the church, well, then I guess you got to be part of the Mount Sinai children of Israel. Then what are you doing over there, being part of the Goyim? I mean, the theology does not make any sense, because they're not looking at it from a Hebrew standpoint.
Very nice. Very nice. I think that's smack on.
And
also,
Mhm.
also that's when we became a nation
Yeah.
at the same time. So I don't think there's a separate. I think it's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you too, if in from an Orthodox Jewish standpoint, or from a Jewish standpoint, and I asked this with just an honest inquiry. If the Mashiach came, Eliyahu, to say next year, 2 years from now, in the nation of Israel, the vast majority of them accepted him as Messiah, and let's just say, for sake of argument, he was the Mashiach. Okay, let's just put that out there. He was the Mashiach.
And let's say it was the second coming.
Yes. If there was any Jewish people that did not accept him as Mashiach, what would happen to them?
I don't know, accept him as Mashiach, but I'd still be a Jew.
Yes. But would there be any repercussions? Socially, governmentally? I mean, the Bet HaMikdash would be there, obviously, I believe. Would they be allowed?
When Jesus was alive, and before the Jesus movement went to Rome, I live in the north of Israel, and archaeology shows, what was a church? A church was a synagogue where people believed that Jesus was the Messiah. Okay, there was the early followers of Jesus were up here, and they were Jews. If they couldn't make it to the church to pray with their friends, they'd go to the synagogue and pray with the Jews, and the Jews would accept them, and they would accept the Jews. There were those Jews who, and we've had Jesus movements in Judaism outside of Christianity. I think the two can coexist. So I think it's perfectly okay. I mean, there are a few things we got to talk about. There are definitely a few things we have to talk about. It is not a problem to Judaism that you believe that Jesus was Messiah. The problem is when you turn him into the divine. You got your idea of Mashiach, Messiah, from us. Okay? Cyrus was called the Mashiach.
Yeah. David was a Mashiach.
You had Kohen Mashiach. You had it means you had a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem is when you turn him into the divine. Our problem is when you say that God impregnated a woman, that God was the father of a human. That's our problem. So we'd have a lot to talk about, and we might not come to a perfect agreement. But the question is, can we sit down together? Can we pray together? That's a different question.
Well, I knew, and I know that you knew that I was drawing that correlation of either accepting Yeshua as a Messiah or not, and then the question that I posed, and that's obvious that that's the case. But even if we just separated that, and as I mentioned in that example, if the Mashiach did come, and the Jew did not accept him as the Messiah, I mean, I would imagine. I'm just trying to think from a logical, forget spirituality, just from a logical standpoint, there would have to be some repercussions if he didn't accept the true Messiah. Not the question that I pose over here on this side, but just this question: if he is the Messiah of Israel.
You know my problem with accepting Jesus as a Messiah. Accepting Jesus as the Messiah. There's two problems with that. One is, as I said about seeing Jesus as divine, as the Son of God, that goes against Jewish law. And anyone who tells you that a Jew can believe in Jesus and still be within Jewish law is not telling the truth.
Why would it be against Jewish law? I'm curious about that.
The Shema, Hear, O Israel, God is one.
I believe that too, Eliyahu. I don't believe. Again, I think the Trinity concept that came from the Catholic Church is ill-advised, it's incorrect, and it's abhorrent. But I do believe that Hashem, I mean, you would agree that there's different manifestations of Hashem, and I believe Yeshua.
Not so sure I would agree with that. Not so sure I would agree with that.
Yeah, well, I believe Yeshua is like a manifestation of God, a manifestation of God. And it's interesting that you bring that up because there are some. And it's not outright said, but there are some rabbi writings that look at the Messiah, that when he would come, he would perform miracles such as resurrection,
Sure.
things like that,
Sure.
Things of a divine nature, not necessarily as the Trinity in the way the Catholics have taught us, and we need to forget that, but in the sense of being a manifestation of God, because I can't do that, you can't do that. But the Messiah will be able to do that. So in essence, he does have some sort of divinity in that way as a manifestation of Hashem and a manifestation of God. And I believe Echad, the Shema, does not contradict that, because Echad, Eliyahu, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the idea of unity? Yes, it's one in the sense of unity.
No. That's the difference between Echad and Yachad.
Okay.
Yachad is together, and Echad is one.
Can you say it again?
Echad is one, Yachad is together.
Okay.
Together meaning several elements coming together.
It's the same root word, right? With the same.
No. Well, there's a 2-letter root.
Yeah.
So I can see that, but there's a distinct difference between them. And I've been asked about that quite a bit recently. I really should check out. I'm sure the Rambam talks about it in the beginning of his the Mishnah Torah. So I'm going to have to look that up. But no, I mean, your problem with the Trinity is the problem that I have with saying that, it's several aspects of God coming together. No, coming together is explicitly stating that there are separate elements. And that's not God's unification. That's not his unity.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. And not every analogy is perfect, but I would kind of say, like, I'm not only a father, I'm also a husband, and I'm also a brother and a son. And I act differently in the capacity of those roles differently. The way I manifest myself in those roles are differently. I would not act like my kids the exact same way I act towards my wife. My actions.
Would you go to the Division of Motor Vehicles and ask for a second or third driver's license? because
But
you're still the same. You're still the same person.
it's echad. That's my point. Is that
Right.
I don't disagree with you. I believe in the echad. I don't think it contradicts the Shema whatsoever.
We have several names of God, and the first name of God that's mentioned in the Bible is Elohim. It's plural,
Mm-hmm.
um, but there, in no way implies that there's more than one.
So it's a majestic plural, I believe, in the Hebrew language. Correct? Like whenever if something's going to be a
Yeah,
majestic plural, you're just giving
yeah,
emphasis to it.
yeah, and it's also it refers to nature, and nature is always problematic because nature looks like a lot of things.
But he did say
So
that they created man in our image.
right, right. So yeah, that's usually what they say. It's the majestic plural.
Mhm.
Um, and I've even heard people, oh no, God is transgender
Oh,
because you have the Shekhinah is feminine.
I've heard that.
And I'm just like, dude, get a life.
I've heard, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Eliyahu. I'm glad that you cleared that up. I want to come back to a little bit of those because I think this is a fascinating and as much as the paral dema is important right now. I think the conversation we're having needs to happen.
Yeah, it's honestly it's not so important. A year and a half ago, there was this huge fury online. People, oh, the Jews are going to do the red heifer
The red heifers, yeah.
on Passover. And even though I know it's ridiculous, I always ask Rav Ariel. I'm not going to say, oh, that's ridiculous. No, I always ask him, and I'm very blessed to. Part of the reason is I feel so blessed to be able to ask it. And he was like, no. So I went online, said, and I'm like, you know something, and I got a lot of views, and I said, if I'm wrong, I will never post another video. I'll remove my YouTube channel. And I said, and if anyone else who said that it was going to happen after Passover, if it doesn't happen, I want you to, post a retraction. No one ever did. This time also, it didn't happen. We're not going to start purifying Jews with the ashes that came out of that practice. It's not going to happen.
Well, I think it's
So,
important, Eliyahu. I want that Bet Hamikdash to be built. I
oh
really do.
yeah,
And that's it.
for
It is
sure,
important to me.
for sure. And that's another interesting thing because a lot of Christians, temple of the Antichrist, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And but it's funny, the people who say that to me are never educated Christians.
Do they not read Ezekiel 40 to 48 in the millennial kingdom that there's going to be offerings?
Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
it's right there. I don't understand. You just got
Because
to read.
replacement theology has taught them that what it's talking about is people giving their tithes to the church.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very specifically says that they'll be wearing the breastplate. They'll be doing the offerings. They'll have the high priest.
Sure.
The whole thing.
They'll be wearing a tie and they'll be no, it's replacement theology has destroyed the followers of Jesus. Replacement theology has left devout Jesus followers who are seeking the truth in the Bible and has destroyed any pathway they have to understand the Bible the way Jesus did.
Have I explained it, Eliyahu, right? The way we've been dialoguing right now in my belief in Yeshua as the Messiah, being strengthened by Torah, strengthening that belief. Has that in any way have any semblance of the way that I've portrayed it to you as replacement theology?
Absolutely not. And I wish more followers of Jesus and lovers of Jesus listen to you.
Amen.
If they don't want to listen to me, I'll be very, very happy. But they should listen to you. They should. I mean, and you've witnessed to the fact that your experience of connecting to the Bible and rejecting replacement theology has brought you closer to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
Mm-hmm. His own words is the reason why. Yeshua's own words is the reason why. I want to ask, and I know we touched on this a little bit. I wanted to ask, what is your take on the conservative right's position on Israel, particularly with Tucker Carlson and Candace? But you've already touched on that, so I'm going to go a little step further. Pesach,
they're attaching heavily to replacement theology and saying, "Oh, we can't let the Jews we can't let the." When the prophecy said that the Jews would come back to Israel, that God would bring us back. It was talking about the church. It had nothing to do with these people that we saw in living in these ghettos, in these Jewish neighborhoods. No, it has nothing to do with them.
How did you feel Ted Cruz handled that interview with Tucker Carlson?
Badly. He handled it badly.
In what aspect?
Because he misquoted the Bible.
The Genesis 12?
Yeah. The Genesis 12 does not say whoever blesses Israel will be blessed. It says that through Abraham, people will be
all
blessed.
The nations will be blessed.
Right. Yeah. And that's not the same thing. And I felt
But his
so
point,
bad.
I think his point was, maybe he misquoted it, but I think the point he was trying to make, I think, was accurate, though.
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. And not only that, I look at Tucker Carlson, I'm just like, man, you are so pitiful. It's so sad. You've just said that the Jews are not descended from Abraham. Who's going to bless you?
Mm-hmm.
You have no blessing. You know, and it's not, I'm not blessing the nations because I get anything out of it. I'm blessing the nations because God told me I have to. I have no choice.
I don't know what happened to these people, Eliyahu. I think this has to do a lot with the Yacharit Hayamim that we're in, or we're quickly approaching. I don't know what happened to Tucker or to Candace.
Sheeps and goats, man. Sheeps and goats.
Actually, I do understand what happened to Candace. She married the person that she married. And she admitted it in one of her interviews. She literally said, my husband was teaching me, and then she went on, nobody caught it. I caught it. And then she went on to spew this hatred.
Yeah, I also wonder about her upbringing. Apparently, she was raised by her grandparents, and her grandparents were very big lovers of Israel, and they're very not so into what she's doing now. And it's interesting. So she had a kind of broken background, but she's not American black. She comes from like the islands, something like that.
Oh, really? I don't know her. Yeah. I've reached out to her. I want to talk with her, but
like Obama's not American black. His father was, temporary immigrant from Africa. So he doesn't, like they said, the first black American president. And I'm like, not really, his ancestors were never slaves.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite is true. His ancestors were slave owners. Candace Owens, the same thing. She's not the same as black Americans, except skin color.
She loved Israel at one point. She worked for PragerU.
She did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she wore a necklace that said Ema, I believe, on there.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that was opportunistic. I don't know.
Maybe. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
She made a nice living out of it.
Pesach Wilicki, as you know, I watched one of his teachings. He came to our city. I think it was a couple of years ago to one of the churches here. And I had the pleasure to go meet him. I don't know him personally. He probably wouldn't even remember me, but I had the pleasure of meeting him, and I saw his teaching. He had a very interesting take. But before I go into that, I wanted to ask you, what is your take on a two-state solution?
The two-state solution is creating an unprecedented Arab state inside of Israel's borders that will be militarized, used as a terrorist entity and a terrorist base, and it will be exclusively Palestinian, and it will have its exclusively Muslim, Palestinian, not even Muslim, Palestinian capital in an exclusively Palestinian Jerusalem. It is racist in the same way that the Palestinian Authority and Gaza is racist, ethnically cleansed of everyone who is not Palestinian. It's the beginning of the Nuremberg laws that led up to Nazi Germany, where they said Jews can live here and Jews cannot live there. Look in this section of the globe. Where can Jews live? Where can Jews live? And they're just saying, oh, it's already too much. Jews are living in too many places. They're too free. We got to do something about that. We're going to say that they can't live in these other places, and we're going to create a made-up nation in order to stop Jews from living in other places. And it's like with the Gaza war, it began when Gaza was ethnically cleansed of Jews, living Jews and dead Jews. The graves were ripped up. They didn't even want to see our old houses. You'd think they'd want to move into our houses. They didn't want that. So they ethnically cleansed it of Jews. And now in the war, it is the most basic human right to allow a person to flee a war zone. And we've seen this over and over, all over the world in the past few decades, refugee status. The world would rather see every single Arab, every single person in Gaza die rather than allow Jews to live there. That's the two-state solution. Is we must ethnically cleanse Jews from everywhere that we can. And we're willing to let every Palestinian die in order to make that happen. That's what the two-state solution is. What do I think of it? I think it's about right for the left wing. I think woke left-wing academics who spend insane amounts of money for a worthless college degree, I think it's right up their alley.
I don't get scared much, Eliyahu, but if there's one thing that really comes close to that is what's going on with Israel and Gaza and that whole situation over there, because I see shows like Piers Morgan and all these shows where they kind of distort the facts and they turn it around, and there's
you're being very nice to say distort the facts.
Oh, yes, I am. But that's why if you noticed, I didn't say one word. I wanted you to say every word that you wanted to say about that, because I think it's important that my audience and people need to hear exactly, because I believe that sometimes we want to be too politically correct and people want to say, well, you can have a two-state solution. Yes, I support Israel, but they're the poor Gazans and things like that. And there cannot be a two-state solution.
So as a journalist, I have a big problem with language. I'm very challenged by language. The UN redefined genocide specifically to demonize Israel. The UN redefined what indigenous is. Indigenous requires that the person be a minority, which means the Palestinians are not indigenous to Judea, Samaria, and Gaza because they're the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they redefined these words, and they even redefined famine in order to demonize Israel.
Yeah.
And it's not even lies. It's already like genocide. Really? Do you realize that before the war, there were 2 million Palestinians in Gaza? And I have a problem with the word Palestinian, by the way. I challenge anyone to give me a definition of what a Palestinian is in a way that differentiates them from Arab Israelis. It's insane. There is no such thing as the Palestinian people. Until 1964, Palestinians hated being called Palestinian because it implied the British mandate, and they didn't want to think that they were subservient to the British. Okay. That being said, yeah. So where was I? Okay. So the Palestinians are not native to Israel. They're not native to this area. They speak Arab. They speak Arabic. They're from the Arabian Peninsula. They've redefined these terms in order to demonize Israel. And that's a problem. I have a big problem with that. And what's crazy, you had Tucker Carlson interview this sister Stephanopoulos, mother Stephanopoulos, whatever, and he's willing to lie and say, oh, the Christians are suffering under Israel, when precisely the opposite is true. I just wrote an article today. Christians are being murdered all around this region. And he's willing to demonize Israel and watch Christians die just because he gets to demonize Israel. So it's like the hatred. Racism is an interesting thing. In anti-Semitism, people are willing to destroy themselves in order to hate Jews. And that's what I see these people doing. They're willing to destroy Christianity in order to hate Jews. They're willing to allow Christians to die in order to hate Jews. Best thing for the Palestinians would be, for the Arabs, would be if Israel brought them in as full citizens. It would be the best thing for them.
For Israel to bring in the Palestinians as full citizens?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think, how do I say this? I know that's a very kind thing to say and a very politically correct thing to say.
No.
Do you think that would work?
Not immediately, because,
brother, and I just want to be honest with this, because my belief, and I'll say it, I don't believe it would work. I believe there's too much roots and tentacles in that.
There is. In the early 2000s, when there was all the stabbings, who was doing the stabbings? And I lived in Gush Etzion at the time, and it was just like, it was horrible. Like every other day there was a stabbing on the streets right around the corner from my house. And we called it the Oslo generation. Oslo was in 91, and we're talking about 16, 17-year-old young boys and girls. And one of the main functions of UNRWA, of the United Nations educational system, has been to drip poison into their minds. Okay? When Israel didn't just leave in 2005, Gush Katif, Gaza, the Jewish settlements in Gaza, they exported $80,000 a day in agricultural goods. It was, and they had hotels. It was, when Donald Trump said, the Riviera on the Mediterranean, he wasn't kidding. People who criticize for me, he was right. The best beaches in Israel are in Gaza. Okay? It was paradise. But since 2005, Hamas they killed all their political challengers. And the only people left, and they've educated the young to be suicide bombers, which is crazy, because I remember thinking the worst thing about Gaza, I just can't wrap my head around, is I remember thinking, thank God, Israel, we built bomb shelters in the Iron Dome. Why don't the Arabs have that? And I realized they do. There are hundreds of miles of hardened tunnels in Gaza that could protect every single person in Gaza hundreds of times over from airstrikes. But they would rather watch their own people die.
Brother, take this from a Westerner's point of view. I don't believe that can happen. And one of the reasons I say this is, and I say this many times, but there was an interview I saw recently of a Catholic priest, I'll put it in quotes, Catholic priest. He lived in the UK. He's now living in the United States. But he says that when he goes back, he does not even recognize his land. It's like you're living in a Muslim country, a Muslim country.
The problem is, I don't think this. Also, you can't say Muslims. Okay, there's a huge difference between Palestinians. Palestinians are Sunni, and they've allied themselves with Iran, which is Shia and not even Arab. Iran is Persian; it's not Arab. They're Aryans.
Correct. You're right.
And so these Arab Sunni Islamists have aligned themselves with Shia non-Arabs. And Turkey also, it's non-Arab, and I think it's Shia. And so it's like they're all bound by the hatred of Israel.
I was going to say, but isn't the common thread the hatred of Israel, though? Either way, you slice it.
Sure. But they would rather die and see their own children die rather than coexist with Israel. And one of the beautiful things is Israeli Arabs have learned to coexist, for a lot of them. The problem is that they also live in the Arab territories, in the Palestinian Authority, and they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And they've culturally aligned. A lot of them have aligned with Palestinians, but a lot of them have not. That being said, Israeli Arabs make up more than half of the medical system in Israel. Most of them are the Christian Arabs, but they've become cultured.
Hmm.
They become cultured through coexistence, through the contact with the Jews. And when Gush Katif was down there, the Arabs had great jobs. The BDS movement hammers Palestinians because Palestinians earn way much more working for Jewish businesses in Judea and Samaria than they earn in Arab businesses, in Palestinian businesses. Before Oslo, no Israeli had a Jewish mechanic. No Israeli had a Jewish contractor. We would drive our cars into the Arab villages, drop them off, sit down, have a Turkish coffee with the owner, and get our cars fixed. It was
Hmm.
coexisted. It was coexistence. We don't have that now because we can't go into the Arab territories. Jews cannot go into the Palestinian Authority. So these guys are starving, and BDS made it even worse. Everything that's happened over the last 30 years has destroyed coexistence. It is not a peace movement, it's an anti-peace movement.
That's right.
And what's interesting during this war is that the previous conflict in Gaza, a lot of the Israeli Arabs in the mixed cities were rioting, and it was an ugly scene. After October 7th, a lot of Israeli Arabs stood up and said, "Not in my name. Not in my name." And that's a good thing. Not all, but because they've been having this poison dripped into their minds. And also because you got people supporting the hatred of Israel. You got the Christians coming over, like the Sister Stephanopoulos.
It's growing. And that's what I was referring to earlier about my.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know if I fear is the right word, but yes, that's what I fear is that
Do
from
you
my own
know,
brothers and sisters are starting to come against
right?
Israel. Like you can't do that.
The EU is sending millions of dollars for the Palestinians to build structures in Area C, which they should not be allowed to build in. That's slated for Israel. They're not sending a penny to the Palestinians to build in Area A, which is the Palestinian territory, or Area B. That's not love of Palestinians. That's hatred.
Hmm.
So, but the Islamists, what people don't realize is the Islamists, how do I put it? They have this like ideology that if you have your foot on their neck and they don't have a chance, then they'll live with you. Like really coexist. Really coexist. But the minute that they think that they have a chance, then they're forbidden to coexist. And in America, you're starting to hit critical mass, especially in some places. And in Europe, they're a little bit past critical
Oh yeah,
mass.
you look at places like Michigan, Detroit. It's becoming Muslim, and I know you mentioned the word is different there, but yes, the culture is different for sure.
Islamist, and in London, Sweden, which used to be totally,
Hmm.
and it's really become, they've reached critical mass, and now they have the requirement. Not only they think, well, of course we should take over. That's what they believe.
Yes, their
That's
belief
what,
is their belief. I believe the last study that I saw in UK, there was more deaths than there were births.
yeah,
The
yeah.
populations, and it's not just in UK; it's throughout the world.
So we talk about replacement theology in Christianity. Replacement theology in Islam is replacement theology on steroids.
Yeah,
And they make a big deal, oh, they believe in Jesus. That's a lie.
right.
They do not believe in Jesus.
Hmm.
They believe that Jesus was a prophet for Muhammad,
Right.
that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, all of the characters in the Bible were Muslims. And they believe that in the end of days, Jesus will go from Christian to Christian and say, convert to Islam or I will kill you right here.
Hmm.
And if you go to Medina in Saudi Arabia, there is an open grave next to Muhammad where he's buried, waiting for Jesus, which is his reward for killing the Christians who don't convert to Islam.
Yeah. Well, we see versions of anti-Messiah all throughout Scripture. I mean, you see it in Yeshua speaks about it, and when he refers to Daniel, the book of Daniel, when Daniel talks about the abomination of desolation, which that was Antiochus Epiphanes. I mean,
Yes.
he slaughtered people. So the idea of an anti-Messiah, an antichrist, is not so far-fetched. But I wanted to
Nope.
bring up Pesach Walicki. He had a fascinating view in when he came to teach down here. I've shared it with as many people as I could. He says that this goes back to Abraham, Eliyahu, in Genesis 21, when he made a treaty with Abimelech over some wells that Abimelech had dug, and that one of the reasons that Hashem tested him. Okay, so there's a story of at the very end of the chapter that Abraham is speaking with Abimelech about the wells that Abimelech had dug, and he made a covenant with Abimelech. In other words, go ahead and keep what you have. The very next chapter, the very next sentence of that chapter says, "After these things, then this." Pesach submitted that there's no wasted words in the Bible. So when he says after these things, there's a connection between these two. The very next story is Hashem asking Abraham to sacrifice his son, and his contention is that he was testing him because he did not give direction to Abraham to give any land up to Abimelech at all. And this was almost as a test that, hey, I gave you this land, and guess where this land was, Abimelech? The whole teaching is fascinating, but he goes line by line. This was in Gaza. It was in Gaza when this took place. And he gave this land up to Abimelech. And Pesach's point was that every time Israel has conceded land, it's never gone well for them, ever. And as a matter of fact, it's been a thorn in her side, Israel's side.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I agree with him. And maybe I'll say it not so politically correct. Not only do I think there should not be a two-state solution, there cannot, and I know this sounds maybe bad, but I don't think there can be a coexistence between those two ideologies.
And they don't want coexistence. They don't want the land.
Mm-hmm.
If they had wanted the land, they would have in 2005. They would have said, "Fine, great, we have Gaza. Let's let's keep it." But instead, they specifically went out of their way not to keep Gaza.
What do you think of Pesach's?
I think it's brilliant. I think he's absolutely right. I think he's absolutely right that there's a punishment for us giving up the land. There was a punishment for us not conquering the entire land when we came back from Egypt.
That's right.
So
that's right. In fact, we're reading that in the parashah.
And by the way, are you familiar with the correlations between the times that America has forced Israel to give up land and the punishments that have come upon America?
No, I don't know if I want to hear this, but go ahead.
No, I've written articles about it. It's like, it's way too numerous to just give over. It's like, you're talking like 50 different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was even like the Madrid conference. Bush went to the Madrid conference. As he was flying back, the perfect storm formed over the Atlantic and destroyed his house in Kennebunkport, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was a meeting in Paris that was going to force Israel to agree to a two-state solution. While they were meeting, the Seine overflowed and like destroyed the basement of the Louvre Museum and all the Seine overflowed like it hasn't done in hundreds of years. It's just time after time after time. When what's his name, Clinton, was going to force Israel to some kind of horrible peace agreement, as he was like an hour before he was about to make that announcement, the Monica Lewinsky thing came out. Okay. It's like, I'm talking like 30, 40, 50 things, correlations of, you mess with Israel, try to force us to give up the Holy Land, you're going to get messed with. That's the way it is, cause and effect.
I'm scared of that too. I love my country, Eliyahu, but when my country, if it ever stops supporting Israel or forsakes Israel, I fear for my country. I fear for the people here, because Hashem doesn't need the United States to protect Israel. And that's what people don't understand. We need to stop funding for Israel. God's going to protect them, guys.
You've had too many blessings. You don't need any more. So,
I need a few more, brother. I need a few
yeah,
more.
yeah.
You've been very gracious with your time, but I want to end it with one more question, and maybe we can go into a little detail on this. How close do you think we are, in your view, to the Acharit Hayamim?
We're in it.
Explain.
Um, Rav Yoel Schwartz was a member of the Sanhedrin, and he passed away a couple years ago. And I once asked him, I said, do you think we're going to stop? I mean, it says the prophecy that, and the ninth of Av and a couple other fasts are going to turn from fast days to feasting days. And I said, are we permitted to not fast on Tisha B'Av? He looked at me and said, what makes you think you're permitted to fast on the ninth of Av? You go out to the streets of Jerusalem, kids are playing in the streets, old people are sitting there. Tell me a prophecy that hasn't happened. Tell me an end of the days prophecy. We're here. The Jews are in Israel.
That's right.
God brought us back. If we wanted to start the temple service, if the government said to us, okay, you guys can do it, it would literally take us 3 hours to start bringing offerings. Literally, everything is ready. We are 3 hours away from the final stages. We have, in Judaism, we talk about a two-stage process of Messiah. There's the Messiah from the house of Joseph and the Messiah from the house of David.
Right.
The Messiah from the house of Joseph is practical, the ingathering of the exiles, the blooming of the deserts. There's a question about whether the building of the temple starts in Messiah from the house of Joseph. And the Messiah from the house of David is much more miraculous. Is there any question that we are at least deep into the Messiah from the house of Joseph, if not already finished it? We're already there. I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
Prophecies are here. I remember I wrote about foxes running around on the Temple Mount. There's a story in the Talmud about a bunch of rabbis who went to view the destruction of the temple, and they saw foxes running out of the Holy of Holies. And all the rabbis started crying, and Rabbi Akiva started laughing. And they said, why are you laughing? He said, why are you crying? They said, well, there's a prophecy that the temple will be destroyed and become a place of desolation and wild animals, and here we have it. And Rabbi Akiva said, okay, and there's also a prophecy that will be rebuilt. So if one prophecy happens, the other will happen. We saw foxes running around on the Temple Mount.
Oh, interesting.
We've seen the desolation. But if you go up there now, there are Jews prostrating themselves. There are Jews dancing and singing. We're deep into it, if not ready to finish it.
Does the Dome of the Rock, or even like trees, do they need to, can they be there if the tamid starts?
Yeah, sure. You know what the Dome of the Rock is made from?
Mm-mm. What's it made from?
So when you come to Israel and you go up to the Temple Mount to have a face-to-face with Abba, there's what they call the Gate of Mercy, the Golden Gate. And it's like you have the big plaza, and then there's steps going down, and there's an open courtyard, and then doors going in underneath the level that go out to the Golden Gate. Next to those doors is a blue tarpaulin that's covering timbers. Those timbers are from the early 1900s, when there was an earthquake that caused the Aqsa Mosque, the Aqsa Mosque, not the Dome of the Rock, the Aqsa Mosque, its roof collapsed. So they built a new roof, but they saved the timbers from the old roof, and they put it under this tarpaulin. It's been there for 120 years. Some Jews managed to get hold of some of the timbers, and they have them carbon dated. First and Second Temple. Those two Muslim structures were built from temple materials.
Oh, wow.
If you take off the tiles underneath, why would they go out and buy materials?
Mm-hmm.
90% of the stuff you see on the Temple Mount is from the temples. No one brought up, more so the opposite. There was a time they wanted, whatever, there's the Marwani Mosque that's under the Temple Mount. And it was what they called the Solomon Stables. And they literally brought in heavy equipment, tractors and dump trucks and carried out the material. And the sifting project, they sifted that material and they found material from the temples. Everything up there is from the first and second temples. The mosques are from the first and second temples.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe you should just repurpose it. Or
Well, then that the dome of the rock, then I guess what you're saying is does not defile the Temple Mount.
no more than the Arabs themselves do.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like we're not going to be anti-Muslim because it's got to be a house of prayer for all nations.
I'm just trying to think, because I'm trying to think back to the story in Nehemiah and Ezra where they came back and they built and they started the tamid. Was that area cleansed? Was it? And I'd probably be a point of study for me.
Antiochus, he built a altar to Zeus and offered pigs up on it.
Right.
So it has to be purified. There's two concepts in Jewish law. One is lechatchila and the other is b'diavad. Lechatchila is the ideal situation. If everything could be perfect, how do you do the mitzvah?
Okay.
You wake up on time, you can pray. Well, what if I wake up at 11 in the morning and it's starting to get to be afternoon? Can I still pray the morning prayers? B'diavad means, okay, you blew it, so now what do? You're not supposed to mix milk and meat, but if a drop of milk falls into my chicken soup, what do? Okay? L'chatchila, Solomon's temple. B'diavad, we have some buildings up there that shouldn't be there. What do? So that's a different story.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I agree with you. I think we are in the Acharit Hayamim, and there's so many things that are pointing to biblical prophecy. And brother, maybe
if I could, one more thing.
Yes, absolutely.
When I first started writing my articles, I've written 5,000 articles. I've been doing it for 11 years. People were laughing at me saying, "Oh, come on. Do you really think that this is a sign of the end of times? And this has happened all the time. It's just, come on. This is nothing new." Ever since COVID, no one has said that. Ever since the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel, no one has said that.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees we are in the end of times right now and we're getting ready. And for some people, it's like, thank God. For other people, it's not the way I wanted it to be. Okay, so what are you going to do? You got to live with it. And other people are like, no, we can't have any of that. We can't have the Jews in Israel.
Tovia made a passionate plea saying that after October 7th, nobody was ever the same.
Yeah.
We're different people. I mean, I say we as well because of the tragedy, but specifically in Israel, Jews are completely different after October 7th.
Absolutely. Also for the better and also for the worst. You have some Jews they're like doubling down and tripling down on the stupidest things. And it's painful to watch.
Well, brother, if I pray that, we continue this relationship, you could teach me more Torah. Maybe I could, and not as a conversion, but maybe we could continue speaking about Yeshua. How about that?
I'm into that. I don't think I could or would want to convert you. I love you just the way you are.
Brother, I love you too. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Really a pleasure.
And maybe we can do this again.
Okay. God willing.